Hello, and welcome to the Candidate Forum for Wyoming House District 47. My name is Rachel Crocker, and I am the director of the Albany County Public Library. In election years, we are always proud to partner with the League of Women Voters to bring you these candidate forums. And this year, we're particularly happy to bring them to you in this unique format, as we think they are just a really important part, a really important service to our community. So this forum was recorded on Thursday, July 30th. And now I'm happy to turn this over to Nancy Lockwood of the League of Women Voters, who will let you know a little bit more about how this forum will be run this evening.
That I do every time. Yep. And I realized it starts with good evening. I'm so used to doing these always at 7 o'clock in the evening. Actually, we're doing this in the afternoon, so I'm going to start with a good afternoon to everybody. And welcome to our virtual candidate forum. I am Nancy Lockwood. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters, along with Lynn Ipina. I would like to thank the Albany County Public Library for co-sponsoring our candidate forums, particularly our director, Rachel Crocker, who you just met, who has assisted with the Zoom platform for tonight's forum, or this afternoon's forum. Tonight's forum is for the Wyoming House District 47 candidates. There are 4 House District 47 candidates, all Republicans, and we have invited all the candidates to participate in the forum, and all are present. We are recording tonight's forum and posting it on YouTube within the next few days. At the end of the forum, we will provide the link to tonight's forum. It's also, and I think I sent that to all the candidates, they have that, but there will be a screen share with contact information, and that will also have the link there. Laramie's public access TV station, channel 191, will also air the forums in the coming days. They have a schedule, and if you go onto the city's website, you can find the schedule there, and it'll tell the times that they're airing the various forums. We will begin tonight's forum with some general information about the primary election and forum procedures. The primary election is Tuesday, August 18. Absentee voting is already underway. You may vote now by completing a ballot at the county clerk's office, or you can request an absentee ballot from the clerk's office through August 17. The county clerk's office needs to receive your completed absentee ballot by August 17. You may also take your absentee ballot to your polling place on election day. On the day of the election, polling places are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You may register to vote or change your voter information at the clerk's office through August 3. You'll need a picture ID to register, and there's a few other pieces of identification, and all that can be found on the county clerk's site. You may also register or change your registration after August 3 through August 17 at the clerk's office if you also cast an absentee ballot at that time. In addition, you may register or change your registration at your polling place on election day. If you have any special needs, voting accommodations and aids are available at each polling place and at the clerk's office. The election judges can assist you at the polls, and you may also call and contact the clerk's office to arrange in advance for assistance. The county clerk has consolidated polling places for this election due to COVID-19. There are 4 polling places within the city limits and 2 polling places outside the city limits. If you are a registered voter in Albany County, you should have received a postcard in the mail with the location of your polling place for the primary election. You can also contact the county clerk's office or go to their website to find your polling place. And I'm sure we're going to have some viewers that are outside of Albany County, since House District 47 is this huge district that encompasses parts of northern Albany County, parts of Carbon and Sweetwater counties. So I think if those people and residents in those counties contact their clerk's office, you can find out about your polling places there. In addition to finding your polling place, the clerk's website and the Wyoming Secretary of State's website are great resources to find out about voting in the election. On August 2, 2020, the Laramie Boomerang will publish the League's Voters Guide. Furthermore, the League has posted the Voters Guide on the League's website, and there are copies available at the Albany County Public Library and Albany County Clerk's Office, as well as other locations in town. If you are interested in knowing more about the League of Women Voters or becoming a member, please visit our website and Facebook page. In addition to the Voters Guide, our website will have a link for the recording of this forum and the other primary election forums. We will begin tonight's forum with questions for the candidates. The League has chosen questions from those provided to us by local citizens, including League members. The questions are specific to the Wyoming State Legislative offices, both House and Senate when we're having Senate candidates, and are not directed towards specific candidates. Therefore, the moderator will ask all candidates this afternoon the same questions. Questions were not provided to the candidates in advance of tonight's forum. Responses to the questions are limited to 90 seconds. Candidates, we ask that you wait to begin your responses until you are on speaker view and spotlighted. The moderator will have the discretion to edit questions for clarity and appropriateness, to ask follow-up questions, to help expand upon an issue, to cover unaddressed issues, and to elicit responses that will assist voters in distinguishing one candidate from another in relation to issues. All candidates will be given time to respond to any follow-up questions. The moderator may also vary the allowed response time based on the complexity of the question and overall time constraints of the forum. At the conclusion of the forum, we will display by screen share a list of the candidates and their contact information so you can connect with them for further information. We will also display contact information for accessing the recorded forums, contact information for the League, and the websites for the Albany County Clerk's Office, the Wyoming Secretary of State's Office, and the Albany County Public Library. And now I will turn things over to our moderator tonight, Mike Massey. Mike Massey is a retired historian and administrator who served in the state legislature on the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees and is chair of the Community Coalition for the recently built Laramie High School. He is currently a board member of the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resources Trust. He has also served as a moderator for other candidate forums in recent years, and the League is pleased to have him return. So welcome, Mike, and I'll turn things over to you.
Well, thanks, Nancy, and welcome everybody to the House District 47 Legislative Primary Forum. And I believe that we have all four candidates here. And I'll list them, just to make sure I pronounce your last name correctly more than anything else. So who we have in attendance is Joey Carenti. And Joey, I hope I got that right. Dee Garrison, Julie McAllister, and Jerry Paxton. So we'll begin with the questions here in just a minute. I'm going to start with a different person every time when I pose a question. So the first person to respond isn't always going to be the same individual. And the order that we will proceed, after the first person has responded, will be in alphabetical order. So the alphabetical order is Joey Carenti, Dee Garrison, Julie McAllister, and Jerry Paxton. So for instance, if I were to ask Dee Garrison the first question, the next person to respond will be Julie McAllister, then Jerry Paxton, and then Joey Carenti. So that's the order that we'll go through throughout the forum here. And everybody will pretty much get an equal chance to be the first one to respond. When you aren't talking, and if you're on video, if you could put your video on mute until you are ready to talk and then unmute, that will help out a little bit with the background noise. We're going to go for about 90 minutes. In other words, we'll finish up around 5:30, and I'll give you a heads up on the very final question that you'll have, and it really won't be a question. It'll be an opportunity for everyone, all four of you, either 60 to 90 seconds to offer any concluding remarks, any additional comments, or any clarifying comments from something you had said earlier. So if you get cut off and you wish you had a few more seconds to say a few more things, you'll have an opportunity to do that at the very end. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And the first question, we'll start with Joey Carenti. And the question is, oh, there's some nice music in the background. Thank you. We need that. Here's the question. Please tell us who you are, why you are running for election or re-election, and why you would represent your district, House District 47, well. And Joey, we'll start with you.
Thank you. My name is Joey Carenti. I'm running for House District 47. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum and distributing it for us and keeping the digital record so that people outside of Albany County can see it. The Albany County Library is got a special place in my heart. I used to live in Albany County, spent a lot of time in the library, so thank you guys for your support. I ended up in Wyoming after spending about 20 years in the Army. Well, I was in Wyoming before I went overseas with the Army, but the Army takes you away from Wyoming. So when I came back after quite a few years overseas, Wyoming was the only America I still recognized. And it was very important to me to maintain that and make sure that it was protected. So I'm not from Wyoming, but I did choose Wyoming, and I've chosen to assimilate to Wyoming. And that's what brought me to running for office. I see that Wyoming is in a lot of trouble, has been for years. And we've had legislators in office who haven't done anything about it except for look at certain reports and say, yeah, that could be bad eventually. Well, eventually has come, and nobody's doing anything about it except for saying, we need to raise your taxes and reduce your services. I know that there's better ways of handling this. And as the chairman of the Carbon County Republican Party, I believe that a strong, constitutionally and liberty-minded approach is the best way to attack these problems. Looking forward to talking to you guys in the future, and you can find my website at www.joeycarenti.com and find out any additional information you want about me, including my phone number where you can call me and talk more.
Thank you. Dee Garrison.
I guess you're just going to have to say start because you can't put her up there.
Okay, go ahead and
up.
start.
Hi,
Go
can
ahead
you
and
hear me
start.
now? Hello?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. First, I want to say thank you very much for holding this. The distance that we have to travel is immense, and having forums like this make it easier for us to reach everybody. I am Dee Garrison. I am Wyoming chosen. I moved here from New Jersey back in 1998. In New Jersey, I was a police dispatcher. I graduated from the Burlington County Police Academy in 1976. When I came out to Wyoming, I worked at the Wyoming Department of Corrections, the WSP in Rollins, worked my way up in rank to correctional sergeant, retired in 2011. Okay. I'm running because it matters. It matters what happens in Wyoming, and there's a lot that's going on here that I feel I have ideas that other people would want to hear that would actually work to help us out. You can find some of my ideas on my webpage at www.deegarrison.com, or you can contact me by phone at 866-DEE-4-YO. And thank you very much again. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dee. Julie McAllister.
My name is Julie McAllister. I'm also running for House District 47, the Republican primary. I was not raised in Wyoming, didn't get a say-so in that. As soon as I had a say-so, came back, went to the university for a bachelor's in political science, master's in public administration, went on to work in just about every single field and industry there is in the area, from waiting tables and working in the back in a kitchen to running and managing stores and retail outlets, and did 6 years of oil and gas with the University of Wyoming. Plans changed in 2012. 2014 began my bid for HD 47. The reason I'm doing this is simple. Every single problem that I ended up dealing with as an adult could be traced back to some mistake in foresight in legislation, some source of issue that couldn't be solved and no one could do anything about because you couldn't communicate with representatives, you couldn't get a hold of anyone, and nothing could be done about it. So I began my bid. We absolutely need to take this election as seriously as humanly possible. It's not time to discuss plans or be calm about things or not take every penny we're spending and cutting incredibly seriously. The repercussions of every single tax, every single choice that's made is going to last decades. That impact is going to matter. It's going to change what Wyoming is. It's going to certainly affect who lives here, who votes here, who works here, and it's not going to impact it in a fair manner. And House District 47 is in a lot of trouble. Oh, there's stop.
Okay, thanks, Julie. And by the way, if you get a stop sign in your middle of a sentence, feel free to go ahead and finish the sentence up. That'd be fine. Jerry Paxton, you're next.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you again. I'm Jerry Paxton, a fifth generation Wyomingite, a retired school principal from Encampment. I have an agricultural background. I have served as a county commissioner as well as mayor and town council of two different towns. Encampment is currently in my fourth term as representative from House District 47. The reason I'm running is that we are facing a real crucial time for all of Wyoming. When we look at the amount of deficit that's projected, it's a staggering number. We've heard from our experts that we can't cut our way out of this dilemma that we're in, and so we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions on the revenue side. We're going to have to look at the rainy day account, see what we can do with that. I feel like my experience has qualified me to be the best candidate to take a look at what we have, the challenges we have ahead of us, and come up with the best solution we can possibly come up with.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we'll start with Dee Garrison and then go alphabetically from there. So Dee, here's the question. Wyoming is facing a financial deficit of about $1.5 billion, perhaps the largest in its history. The state constitution forbids budget deficits. What revenue increases and expenditure reductions are you prepared to support?
Go ahead and start.
Yeah, we'll start with Dee.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I again apologize with this old phone. You are correct. We are facing a deficit. It is a serious one. One of the ways that we can go about fixing it is we have a sales tax law that does not give the treasurer any teeth to collect the sales tax that's owed us. If we can get this law changed, we can begin bringing in revenue immediately in that particular area. The next is all the budget cuts that the governor has asked for. There are serious cuts that need to be made, but we have to make sure that there is transparency and accountability in this so that we're not bringing... Is my time up?
No, just keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that can be taken care of immediately. I've noticed through checking onto things that the governor and House Rep Cheney has gone in there to try and get some of these permits changed, but we have some green lighted permits for expansion. So just getting an extension to it is not good enough. We need to pressure the government to give us those permits right now so that the expansion can go. That'll bring in more jobs. It'll bring in more revenue to the oil and gas companies too, which will help to keep us from being in a deficit with our budget. Those are just a couple of the things that we can do. Also, that won't help immediately but can help in the future is to bring in a couple of tech companies and some meat processing. That'll bring in jobs and great revenue to help with our budget. Now,
Almost
there was
done. Almost
I'm sorry.
done.
Okay, I'll end right there with that then. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Julie McAllister, you're up next.
Did it work?
There you go.
Okay, there we go. Would you be kind enough to please repeat the end of the question? Your audio and video broke out in the middle of the question. I only heard you begin the question.
Okay, I'll read the whole thing back.
Apologize for that.
So here's the question again, folks. Wyoming is facing a financial deficit of about $1.5 billion, perhaps the largest in its history. The state constitution forbids budget deficits. What revenue increases and expenditure reductions are you prepared to support?
Thank you very much for that. Begin answering that question to the opposites of echo of another opponent. Nothing's off the table for ideas for revenue. Nothing. We need to, we have enough in the rainy day account to about fund one biennium. Our Constitution does require a balanced budget, but there's way more than one option to solve that problem. And that's a problem that's solved every 2 years. So it's not the emergency. The emergency is 1.5 billion and our revenue just got its legs taken out. There's not a financial expert out there that's expecting oil to make a strong comeback anytime soon. I've been reading and looking and trying and hoping to find one, but no, there isn't one. We need to also expand in areas of oil and gas that have opportunities left for research. I recently saw something that uranium permits were getting pushed through. That's fantastic. There's some wonderful uranium areas, especially in House District 47. I've spoken with some of the people who used to mine those areas nearby. And those mines, from my understanding and talking to the people that work them, could be uncapped and be started to be used as an extraction site fairly quickly and within current regulation. Those were actually my questions when I met them and found out who they were, was whether or not they could reopen those wells quickly and under regulation. The other thing that we need to be doing very, very carefully, and any revenue that we're looking at getting out of a taxpayer, any increase that's going to affect them, is to make sure that it's an increase that's not going to hit our community very despairingly, like a food tax. Food taxes specifically target elderly and disabled people the most. It hurts them the most. It hits them the most. Those types of regressive taxes are awful, and we need to avoid them, especially in this upcoming session, and make sure that snap choices are not made.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Jerry Paxton, you're up.
Well, we did get some good news, I think, yesterday, in that the Craig report is reflecting a projection of about just under $800 million. So that's good news. And we also have heard from the governor that he's made some cuts amounting to about $250 million. So that is also good news and in the right direction. I think this time we took a look at our rainy day account. It's if anybody thinks it's not raining, it really is. And so I'm not sure how far we can spend that down and still have enough money for reserves. But we need to take a look at that before we do anything in the way of other taxes. We did pass a lodging tax this last year that'll go into effect January 1st, which should help us raise probably $20 to $30 million. The first thing I would do is to look at a corporate tax. We did bring that bill up a year ago and it did not pass. I think we need to take a look at it again. It passed the House of Representatives. And so it really is a great tax in that it doesn't really have any major impact on the state of, or on the normal person in the state of Wyoming. We're one of only 2 states in the United States that does not have a corporate tax, South Dakota being the other one. So I think it's time we took a look at that. Maybe a time to look at a sin tax. The alcohol and tobacco tax might be on the table in the next level of the hierarchy. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Joey Carenti, you're up.
Okay. We just heard from the current representative that first he said he doesn't want to look at a tax right away, but then named off about 9 taxes that he's either already passed or wants to look at. The deficit cannot be immediately borne or pushed towards the backs of the working people of Wyoming. Mr. Paxton has talked about his experience and how important it's going to be to have that experience in the House next year. But in 8 years, that experience has brought us to this point. He also mentioned the Craig report. We did get some good news from the Craig report, but there's two things about the Craig report. It's always been wrong, and no one in the legislature has ever listened to it. Even when they said, hey, you're gonna have a shortfall, this is not guaranteed, the legislature still budgeted straight up to that number in the Craig report. The Constitution does say we have to have a balanced budget, but the budget is a projection of the, appropriations that the legislature gives to the state departments. So the budget can be balanced by reducing spending. I keep hearing all the experts say you can't cut your way out of this with our spending issues, but I'm looking at a projection right now that I've done myself based on the budget that was just passed. And if we reduce the salary of every elected official in the state, every department head, and every state employee making over $100,000 by 20%, which is what the governor asked for, no teachers lose a dime, and the state ends up saving about $237 million. Then if you go down into the operating budgets of those departments and you look at the 900.
Joey, sorry, your time's up. But you'll have an opportunity at the end to add on to it if you'd like. Thanks. Next question here, and we'll start with Julie McAllister. There may be a possibility of some funding relief coming from the national government. Congress is debating whether to send $1 trillion to state and local governments as part of a virus relief package. Would you urge Wyoming's congressional delegation to support this assistance? Starting with you, Julie.
Thank you. Was waiting for the spotlight to come up on my computer in Rock River. I'm not sure how long the delay is, so if that delay is really long, I apologize. I don't know. Honestly, I don't. There is a good and a bad side to that. Taking another $1 trillion of taxpayers' money and incorporating that into every state's budget is certainly useful. You're not going to find anyone who's going to say no to that in a state government and be telling the truth. But I think that it's another choice that has to be thought about the impact of it. Do we absolutely have to have it? I think Wyoming's in a fairly unique situation. We've got a one-time shot with our rainy day fund where we could make a lot of really important decisions. If those decisions pay off and we make the proper decisions, they're carefully made, we could easily not need any assistance. That's another good position for Wyoming to be in. I realize I cannot see the timekeeper. I have no idea where I'm at. I apologize ahead of time. I saw 30 seconds. Okay. In closing on that, I honestly don't know. I'll admit I don't know on that. It's something I really was not prepared for. But it's something I'd be willing and honestly encouraging to talk to voters on, because that's got a long-term effect to it. That money's going to have to come back out at some point in time. So it's another one that has to be made carefully. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Jerry.
Thank you. I would not encourage our delegation to vote for that. You know, we haven't even spent all of the last CARES Act that we received. And I think there's just an awful lot of waste that goes in when you throw that kind of money at something. We have to look forward and look at how are we going to repay all this money that we've already spent? Adding another $1 trillion to that total amount, I just think is unrealistic. So I would discourage our Wyoming delegation to vote for that.
Okay, thank you. Joey.
Thank you. Really surprised, finally something Jerry and I agree on, and I want to put a pin in this moment in the video so that I can remember it. Bottom line is, people like to assign source titles to things. It's coming from the federal government. It comes from us. Where do you think this money comes from? At this point, it's no longer even coming from us. This is a debt that's borne on the backs of our children, our grandchildren, and now we're getting into great-grandchildren before they can ever have a balanced budget or a free of debt life in this country. So absolutely not. I wouldn't, and Julie said, I don't know anybody in government that would truthfully say no. I'm truthfully saying no. We can't take on more debt to mask the problems in the functional government that we have right now. Again, I'm looking at $1.6 billion in cutting we can do within Wyoming without having to fire anybody. So we need to look at the spending, not how much more money we can throw at or get towards this problem.
Okay, thanks. Dee.
Okay, yes. No, I would not encourage it. I was reading on the legislative session, and the governor has just put out there some of the funding from the federal government for small businesses and where they can apply for this at this time. I think what we've gotten in the past is very, very helpful, and we haven't used all of it yet, apparently, because according to the governor's site, we haven't. So let's use what we have there. We do have other options at this time that I think would be better. And again, this is money that generations after us is going to have to pay. What happens in the federal government is just as important to Wyoming, too, because it is our tax dollars going into the federal government that's funding all these programs. So I would not encourage it.
Okay, thank you, Dee. The next question, we'll start with Jerry Paxton. Jerry, here's the question. Since education spending is the largest expenditure in state government and some of the highest costs occur in small rural districts, will K-12 education need to be cut? If so, where?
Well, I would hope that we do not have to cut education. We are in the process, as you probably know, of recalibrating. So we ought to be able to come up with a model here sometime before too much longer that we can take a look at before we decide where that funding should go. You know, I'm not sure where we find the efficiencies that we need in education. We're bound by the Constitution and by the lawsuits, the Washakie and the Campbell County courts system. The declarations from that really limit what we can do and what we can't do. You know, your zip code shouldn't determine the quality of education that you get. And that's been the driver behind all of the funding for education since the court cases took place. I just don't see how we can do any real cutting from that, but I'm anxious to look and see what the recalibration thing comes up with. Maybe we have to take a look at ghost employees. Maybe we have to look at the pre-1967 or 97 reserves that we have out there in some of the school districts. Maybe put a cap on that. We may look at class sizes to see what we can do there, but it's going to be very difficult to make any sizable cuts in education.
Thanks. Joey.
Well, I'm glad to hear that all that experience Mr. Paxton was talking about brought him to an I don't know. We'll have to talk to somebody who can figure it out. I figured it out. When it comes to education, we do have a constitutional requirement to have fully funded education. We do not have a constitutional requirement to throw the number of dollars that the Department of Education asks for at them and let them spend it blindly. So if we just took the plan that I talked about previously and reduced the salaries of everyone in the Department of Education who's making over $100,000, that's $110 million in savings right now. This is administrators, this is executive level people, this is not cutting teachers' salary, and it's not gonna put the cuts into the classroom. What's classically happened is anytime we've had to cut education, they go to the lowest level and say, you haven't been here that long or you don't make that much. And that's normally stuff that happens to the classroom and the things that are happening in the school and at the schoolyard. The administration's top heavy. We've got a 4-to-1 supervisor ratio across the state, including in the Department of Education. So if we just started there and then took a look at the $170 million the Department of Education has stuffed away in the trust fund, they take 10 to 15% of their budget every year and put it into a trust fund and it's just sitting there. That's half of the deficit for the education department for the next biennium in itself. And we haven't even gotten into discretionary spending, wasteful travel, and not using platforms like Zoom to conduct their conferences. We're talking about teaching kids over Zoom. We're not talking about keeping the administrators in their districts by using Zoom.
Thanks, Joey. Your time's up. Dee.
I'm here. Okay. Good question. Education is extremely vital to our future here. The expenditures I'm going to be looking at very carefully. I'm wondering exactly what these administrators are going to recommend to take away from education. Salaries are a big issue. Having come from corrections, I saw how corrections raised their administrative level. So, yeah, taking a look at the administrative level and see if they actually need all these administrators or not is a very reasonable place to go. Also, to see how the spending is. Joey talks about the trust fund. Maybe the interest that comes off of it might be applied, but I'd be a little hesitant to touch the trust fund itself. That could leave us in a very bad position because as it looks now, things are not going to get much better yet. It's going to take time for the economy to open up, so do you want to mess with the trust fund? Take the interest from it. We could put that towards the budget. That would be okay. Reduce some of the traveling expenses, most assuredly. Do we need to do all these meetings? And I was talking to some of the teachers, and there's some training that they were saying is the same training year after year after year, the exact same training. So we need to look at that and see if we can't change the training. Change the training so that the same thing's not done all the time and we can take it from the budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Dee. Okay, next question. Oh, excuse me, Julie McAllister, you're up. Go ahead, you're on screen.
You see if I went on or not. There. Like I said, I was waiting for that delay again. I apologize for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for not forgetting about me. On education, funding education every single year in Wyoming has been a battle for a really long time. We are facing a huge deficit. We're facing a huge issue. Education's going to probably go one of two ways. We're going to either have to change the way we're doing education in Wyoming, which means changes to the law, actual permanent changes to the way we're doing things, and not a single one of those changes should be made without the districts. Yes, the administration's heavy, and most likely it doesn't need a cut in salary. It probably needs a huge cut in administration, which means you're going to probably need somebody who knows a bit about how things are administered to help assist with that cutting to make sure that implementation is actually still correct. You're taking something at the beginning end with education, pushing it through a ton of administrators, handing it to a teacher who then does their best to get it to a child. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. We can shorten that up quite a bit if we're willing to take that challenge on. If we don't, what'll end up happening is the rural schools, the small districts will close, the schools will close, buildings will sit there like they did in the 80s, the 70s and 80s when the bottom fell out of oil before. We have a choice. We can either take it as an opportunity, take it on head first and find the right people to get in the room to find a way to make it work and change things for the good, or we can let it fall apart. And that's what's going to end up happening.
Thank you. The next question, I will start with Joey Carenti. Joey, here's the question. The large budget deficit is caused in part by decreasing demand for coal and other energy resources that have long formed the foundation of the state's economy. What do you propose to do to rebuild the Wyoming economy?
Thank you. I can actually see your timekeeper now, so that'll probably help. First thing we do is we don't give up on coal and extraction. They have to be managed appropriately, but that's the industry's responsibility. We need to make sure that we're treating them the same as we treat every other business in Wyoming without subsidizing them with taxpayer dollars. But we can't quit on them. Wyoming is and will always have something to do with energy. The other thing we need to do for Wyoming is we need to start deregulating and letting small producers go ahead and take their products and turn them from wholesale products into retail products and do the value added processing here in the state. Whether that's agriculture products, I have a plan to bring meat processing to Wyoming, and it's going to start on a small scale. It's going to take years. But if we start in Wyoming and only distribute through Wyoming with these processing plants, we can avoid a lot of the interstate compact issues and build the industry that way until they're big enough to actually go nationwide. But the biggest thing we need to do is increase the effectiveness of the revenue that Wyoming is already getting by making sure we're spending responsibly. I'm kind of tired of hearing all this difference between revenue and appropriations, which is one of the things I'd like to do in the legislature is bind those two committees together. Revenue and appropriations go hand in hand. And if one doesn't respect the other, then every dollar Wyoming makes is worth less than a dollar because it doesn't get the respect it deserves based on where it comes from. Thank you.
You bet. D.
Can you repeat the last part of that question?
You bet, Dee. In fact, I'll read the whole question back. The large budget deficit is caused in part by decreasing demand for coal and other energy resources that have long formed the foundation of the state's economy. What do you propose to do to rebuild the Wyoming economy?
Okay, thank you for that, because I wasn't certain if it was to rebuild the oil, gas, and coal, but it's the total economy. Thank you very much. First thing first, let's get the green light permits out there so that these people can expand in their exploration, taking into consideration the environment. Let's work with some high-tech companies and bring careers in here into Wyoming for our children. So our children will have high-paying, lucrative jobs, and they'll want to stay here in Wyoming instead of move away from us into other areas that do have those type of jobs. Meat processing is something that I've been talking about from the very beginning. Our ranchers are in trouble along with the oil companies too and the gas companies. We need to make sure we're taking care of our ranchers too. So to process here in Wyoming, buffalo, hey, that would be good too. I had some in Nebraska. But to produce our own beef here in Wyoming and to help out our ranchers and eventually to expand it and make Wyo brand go throughout our nation. That is something to look at in the future. Those are a couple things we can do, but that tech is really an important thing. We have people that are willing to come into our state and to bring this technology and to hire our people here, and we need to take advantage of that situation. Okay, thank you. That'll do then, thank you.
You bet. Julie.
Okay, thank you. I'm really curious if Wyoming's going to learn its lesson this time. I was born in 1980. The reason I wasn't born in Wyoming was the oil bust. That's why I wasn't born here. It's why my mom couldn't convince my biological dad to stay here. They couldn't find work. So I'm really curious if Wyoming's going to learn its lesson this time. Rainy day account was created out of the issues legislature ran into the last time the bottom fell out. And it's happened again. And it's happened alongside a pandemic. Are we going to learn? Are we actually going to diversify? Are we going to put our money where our mouth is? Or are we just going to keep throwing money at Endow that has not given us a return? Are we going to admit we were wrong and do something about this? Getting more meat packers in is a fantastic idea that relates back to food freedom laws. That means that a law has to be passed in the legislature in order for any of that to happen. So is anyone ready to go with that? Because I am. I have a bill ready to go that would immediately get more meat packers, more licenses out as soon as that gets passed through. We need to go and talk to everybody who has an idea. If we're going to diversify our economy and keep Wyoming here, we're going to have to learn our lesson and truly diversify our economy, especially make sure that tax money that's being spent to diversify our economy is productive, it's returning on its investment, and we are getting somewhere. That means any bill that's passed allowing tax money to be spent to diversify our economy needs to have built-in check measures to make sure that money's being spent appropriately, or the money needs to be cut off. We have to learn to admit when we're wrong, and we have to learn from our lessons. Thank you.
You bet. Jerry.
Well, Mike, I'm not ready to give up on the mineral extraction industry either. And I think one of the things that we need to do is continue to pursue the Commerce Clause and looking for a deep water port on the West Coast to provide a new market for especially our coal. So I think there's still some potential to do that. We've thrown a lot of money at industries trying to attract them to the state of Wyoming over the years, and a lot of that's been wasted. We've talked to a lot of industry representatives this last year, and the number one, according to them, their number one concern is that we don't have a skilled workforce. And so I've been working with the rest of the Education Committee to come up with some ideas on that. We passed a number of bills that I think will really help that situation, and worked with the community colleges and the university to take care of that problem. We've provided some incentive to the community colleges to continue to build on what they already have. They do a great job on career and technical education. We can do better if we have more money. I just think that we're headed in the right direction with that. We just need a year or two to really start reaping the benefits of what we passed this last year.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to all the candidates so far. We're about halfway through, so hang in there. The next question, we'll start with Dee. Dee, here's your question. Tens of thousands of uninsured citizens can't afford health care insurance or medical care, and many more are underinsured. Is this a legislative issue? And if so, what do you propose to do about it?
Having been one of those people, it is most definitely an issue, and it is most definitely a legislative issue. I know a lot of people are talking about Medicaid for all and Medicaid expansion. What I know about Medicaid is that the state puts in 10% towards Medicaid. The federal government funds the rest. The problem with expanding it that way, if the federal government turns around and withdraws its money, then the state's going to be held accountable for all that. And with a budget problem right now, that would put us in even a deeper way to go. We need to, in our own state, to cover these people that are unable to get insured. And I'm going to be honest with everybody. I've been doing research on this and trying to figure out how it can be done best to where people can be represented. I do know that when I didn't have insurance because it was costing me $1,000 a month for COVID, it was terrible. I was suffering terrible, and I was ill, and I couldn't get to the doctors. And we have people out there now that are facing that. And we have hospitals that are facing that right now because they have to take these people in, and that means they're running out of budget loss. So legislation, definitely. We need to be looking at this for our people. We need to come up with something that will help these people. We need to work together to figure out a solution to this. Thank you.
Julie.
Thank you. Medicaid expansion bills that have been presented to the legislature in the past, I can strongly say that I haven't seen one I would have voted yes on. And that's incredibly frustrating. It's also incredibly frustrating to only have Blue Cross Blue Shield as your only option for private health care in the entire state. That it doesn't sit well with the economist for a good reason. It's not a system that's going to sustain. It's not a system that is going to provide proper health care. We are going to need someone to compete with them at very minimum to begin with. I have heard a couple of clever ideas on state-run systems that were based upon our economic climate pre-pandemic. Every idea I've heard that was a good idea is no longer a good idea, which is frustrating. I am very much attracted to the idea of a state-funded, state-run health insurance program, something that we can handle inside the state and give more state control to that. But now that we're post-pandemic, I haven't seen one that will work. After we get our budget under control. This needs to be the next on the top of legislative priorities. We need to bring every single idea we can possibly get to the table to solve this problem. I'm specifically interested in anything that's state run instead of federally funded. But we are running out of time, we're running out of options. And as the collateral damage of the pandemic finishes, what it's going to do over the next 18 months to 24 months, these decisions are going to be key. They're going to matter and what Wyoming's going to be for the next 50 years. Thank you.
You bet. Jerry.
Well, there's no doubt that the Affordable Health Care Act has been a disaster for the state of Wyoming. I think we've been impacted more than most states just because of this very small population that we have. And it really, having only one provider is a real disadvantage. If we look at the cost of healthcare in the state of Wyoming, especially what we deal with on the Medicaid side, it's a tremendous amount of money. And we have had in the past some proposals for Medicaid expansion. The last one we had, I thought was getting closer to where we needed to be. I think we need to continue to pursue that. The biggest problem we have is that we never know what the federal government is going to do. I think no one is opposed to better health care. It's just a matter of who's going to pay for it. That's the hard part. The last bill that we saw come through that was not successful was a fairly carefully crafted bill. Still have some holes in it. I think we need to look at what some of our other states that have successfully done the Medicaid expansion have done and probably learn from their mistakes. It sure wouldn't hurt for us to get back some of that federal income tax that we put out like some of the other states are doing. So I'm not totally opposed to Medicaid expansion. I just like to have one that fits Wyoming and provide some guarantees that we don't get stuck with a huge bill if it all goes away at the federal level.
And Joey.
I don't believe the question was specifically about Medicaid expansion. It was about having tens of thousands of uninsured individuals. So I'm going to try to focus on that because I'm obviously against Medicaid expansion, and I've explained that in the past. What we need to do in the state of Wyoming is first recognize that there's not just this thing called healthcare. There's three separate branches of it. There's health insurance, there's actual medical care, and then there's access. And as we are a tremendously rural district, we can have health insurance, we can have that Medicaid, but doesn't mean we're going to be able to access or get that medical care. So if we're just going to talk about health insurance, which is what I'm hearing, the 10,000 whatever uninsured people, we need to deal with it the way the rural communities deal with just about everything else, and not necessarily look to the government to provide that with us, but look at our own medical co-ops and our own healthcare savings plans and make sure we're taking care of each other. What I will do as a legislature is help develop the plan so the regulation and the state's resistance to allowing that to happen is reduced. Rural healthcare, the facilities are closing all over the place because of Medicaid. They're already running on a shoestring budget. Medicaid's only paying between 30 and 65% of what the cost is anytime they do one of these procedures. So for rural Wyoming to have actual health care, medical treatment, and insurance, we're going to have to take some of that on our own and make sure that we're passing legislation that do things like make doctors advertise what they're charging for things. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, next question, and we'll start with Julie on this one. In the last session, the legislature provided local governments with additional abilities to raise revenue. Given the difficult times, should the legislature reduce its financial support of local governments with the understanding that they can now raise more money themselves?
Thank you. That's a great question. Yes, they should. And the terrible news is because we haven't had the proper budgeting accountability that we've needed for at least the last decade, we have absolutely no idea how much they should be raising. Doesn't matter that the increases were recent. We need to know what they were spending. It's pretty hard to know how you're going to budget things if you don't know what you need. That's why budgeting tends to start with expenditures. But that is something we should do. And unfortunately, because we don't have the data that's needed on top of passing that finance bill that's needed for the proper accountability in the state so that we can actually move forward knowing what's going on with our money, we need to go to those municipalities and ask them to take the best educated guess they can. That's a conversation needs to be had without conflict, with a cool head, and just honestly go to them and say, what do you think you can do? What do you think can happen here? How can we work on this? Another hard conversation that needs to be had. Unfortunately, probably won't be had properly. Something that needs to be gone to on the base level. People that actually affect the budget know exactly where your penny's spent are a lot of the people that know exactly where a lot of money is going to be saved. Everyone I've talked to in government budgeting in the state who has talked to me has almost always talked to me off the record, but has told me things that are not surprising on the amount of money that's wasted. Things I've tracked over time, hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted on single item issues that I still can't get to the governor. Those are the kind of things we need to get on top of immediately. I'm going to time out. Yep, knew it. Thanks.
Okay, Jerry, you're up.
Well, I would hope that we can continue subsidizing our local governments the way we have in the past. I don't think we solve any problems by shifting that responsibility to the local level, just because there's a vast array of abilities to raise money from one community to the other. And I think that if we give local governments their ability to raise money locally, it will really increase that gap between the rich districts and the poor districts. So I think, I don't think we need to have a bigger gap than we already have. We have the Madden formula that we use that compensates for various different conditions within each district, within each community, within each county. And I believe that's been pretty effective in keeping the playing field level. I don't think that allowing the local governments to raise their own money would do anything. It just is shifting the responsibility from one to the other. It doesn't reduce the amount of money or the amount of taxes that would be gathered. It just increases the gap between the rich and the poor districts.
Okay, Joey.
I find it kind of interesting that a majority of the questions we're getting tonight are about how do we raise revenue and who gets to tax who, and there haven't really been any questions about, well, there's been the first one, where are the cuts, where are the efficiencies, what are we going to do about spending? The only reason to institute or raise a tax is to support the size of government that you currently have created. So I don't care if it's the local communities or the state communities that are abusing the contributions of the taxpayer. It's the abuse that has to stop. I was a little dismayed at Representative Paxton's vote in the last session in 2020 on the 6-penny tax, because that's a tax that the people voted for themselves to have, but they voted for it for a specific purpose. And now the municipalities don't have to use it for that purpose. We could be locked under that tax for a very long time. So when you look at each tax, 4 cents for the state, the 5th penny is the county sales and use, and this penny is a special purpose tax. Where is it going to end? We're going to have to start saying, be responsible with our money. I don't think that the state should be picking winners or losers, but I also don't think that the local municipalities should be robbing the people under the guises of, hey, we really need this, otherwise your roads aren't going to get plowed. We have to stop applying the pain to the hardworking people of Wyoming and start holding the people, whatever source it is that is taking our money out of our pockets, responsible for how they're spending it and keeping track of it. Thank you.
And Dee.
I'm here. I would not take it away. I would not take it away. Going to several of the forums that we've gone to, we've listened to county commissioners and other things. The state is hurting, and the different counties and municipalities are hurting. If we turn around and take this away from them, then we're down on the level to where the hardworking people in those towns are going to be hurt also. So I would hope that legislators would keep that and not take it away from them. People are hurting really bad right now, and I see no reason, after listening to the county commissioners, no reason at all to place more pain on the working people in these areas and the things and the services that they need. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Dee. Jerry, next question is for you to start off with. Do you think purchasing the Occidental surface lands and mineral rights is a sound investment? Please explain why or why not.
I do think that the purchase of the Occidental is a sound investment. We've talked to a number of people that are familiar with that area. We're looking at 1 million acres of surface land, 4 million acres of mineral rights, tremendous amount of mineral available in that area. And I would rather see us be able to develop that as a state, provide jobs for the people within the state of Wyoming, than to have it sold to a foreign country or another entity outside of the United States. I think that would be a very dangerous thing. The people that I've talked to that are in the mineral extraction industry are pretty excited about the opportunity to acquire that much land. It's a lot easier to develop that land if it's under state control, that we don't have to put up with all the federal rules and regulations that we have. And the mineral royalties come back to the state of Wyoming rather than to share that with the federal government. So I'm optimistic that our 5 highest elected officials will make us a good deal, and if we can afford it, I think they will be right on top of that. So I'm hoping that that we can keep it out of the hands of a foreign government and control our own destiny.
Okay, Joey.
Jerry just said he supports the land deal, but repeatedly in the past, he said that to get the federal lands back, the state of Wyoming can't afford to manage those lands. Well, those federal lands also have mineral resources and multi-purpose use and all these great things that the state of Wyoming could do with it. I don't see the difference in the argument that Jerry makes for buying land with our money, as opposed to holding the federal government accountable to the deal they made when we became a state and returning those lands. There's 12 Western states that have yet to receive control of the lands in their own state from the federal government. So if we're going to spend something that's equal to the deficit we're running right now to get yet another biennium behind to hope that those numbers, that those quote unquote experts Jerry keeps talking about are right, we can't afford to find out we're wrong. And one way that we know that we might be wrong is the State Land Investment Group that is doing this research deal with Occidental was just found out to be indebted from Occidental at $123 million, which means the group that's telling Wyoming if this is a good deal or not benefits if this sale goes through, because they get the money that Occidental owes them from previous bad land deals. We need way more transparency on this situation, and 5 people, just because they were elected by the majority of the state, it's not enough people with eyes on this project to say, yeah, let's go another $1.5 billion into debt, when the people that support it already believe that we can't manage a large amount of land on our own in this state.
Dee, you're up.
I think the timing of this made the accepting it difficult for the public. I mean, we're all tightening our belts and trying to survive. People are losing their jobs, losing their homes, being thrown out of their apartments. So when I first read this, I'm like, wow, you have to be kidding. But when you stop to think about it, in the long run, the long haul of things, it is going to make sense. In the long haul, it's going to bring back revenues that we so desperately do need. And as I understand it, because it's not very clear through the papers, it didn't make it very clear exactly how this deal was going to be operated, but I'm assuming we don't have to put all that money out at once. And I do not want to see any more of our land sold to foreign entities. As far as the federal lands go, right now they are federal lands. They are not in the hands of the state of Wyoming, and I love our national parks. The state lands that we have are being managed by the state lands, and I feel that the state will do a good job with this and bring good returns for us, even though the timing is very bad for it. That's it.
Okay. Julie?
Thank you. I don't agree that it's a good idea at all. I think that it's something that certain people are using panic and other agitation tactics to get people to say that it might be a good idea out of fear. And it's an absolutely terrible mistake. We can't manage what we have right now. Every report that has ever been done, whether or not we could manage our federal lands, has said we'd lose money at it. What makes us think we can handle this? What is it that everyone is so excited about that people are bidding on? From my understanding, they took in 13 bids. Last time the news broke, it was only 6. Also, in looking at a corporate tax, something that Representative Paxton is quite adamant about, I think it's very interesting to note that Occidental Petroleum, along with Amazon, John Deere, IBM, and another long list I don't have time to go through, haven't paid corporate tax since 2017. When the Tax and Jobs Act cut it from 35% to 21%. States get about 3% of their income from corporate tax. The states that tend to profit well off of it is really not a profitable investment. And I want to know why we're looking at buying land from someone who hasn't paid corporate tax since 2017. There's a lot of more unanswered questions there. I also don't think it's possible for 5 people to manage $1.5 billion and 5 billion acres of land. 4 billion mineral, 1 million surface, I believe it is. And it's important to note with the law of large numbers, 1 million seconds is about 12 days. 1 billion seconds is 31 years.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Here's the next question, and we'll start with Joey. And Joey, it's a 2-part question. What role do you believe higher education plays in Wyoming? And the second part is, have the abilities of community colleges and the University of Wyoming to fulfill this role been compromised by past and current reductions in their budgets?
Okay, so as far as the role of higher education in Wyoming, I think one of the things that we've gotten away from in Wyoming is preparing our children for the trades and the actual work that needs to be done to take care of the community. So the role of the university and the community colleges, I'm going to separate those even further. The university, I don't know, is to get kids degrees so that they can go get jobs in another state and not stick around in Wyoming and contribute here. The community colleges are different. The community colleges do include things like trades and some of the 2-year degrees that are important in getting into some of the management sectors. So as far as the roles, they do what they do, and the problem I'm seeing in answering the second one is their abilities to do those jobs based on budget reductions. The community colleges have been hit real hard, and I think they could probably be run more efficiently, which is a word that appears in our Constitution when it comes to the university, near as free as possible when run and maintenance in an efficient manner. But the university gets the lion's share of, I've never seen the university take a budget reduction. I've seen them not get an increase that they've asked for, but this is all about efficient management. And I think that we need to start looking at our community colleges as just as important as the University of Wyoming, because the people that are going to keep the communities going, your plumbers, your electricians, your mechanics, like me, your barbers, they're going to community college and they're coming back home and they're living in those communities for 30 years. They're not getting a degree and running off to Denver to spend our Hathaway scholarships on Colorado's future.
Okay, Dee.
Well, I think we'll all agree that the University of Wyoming plays a large role in the state of Wyoming. I will disagree in that all our children go there and then turn around and leave. We have many, many, many students that come from other states, not to mention other countries also. The governor has just asked, I believe, for the University of Wyoming to try and do some better recruitment in that area. That being said, they do outweigh what our community colleges do. Community colleges play a very vital role, and I'm glad to see that people are taking interest in that and that we're going to be able to present our children with education in these particular ones because it'll cost less. Now, their abilities to do their job with the budget issues, yes, I think they will, because the foundation of whether it's our elementary schools, whether it's our community colleges or the University of Wyoming, the very, very foundation is the teachers. And as far as I can see and as far as I want to see, those teachers are not going to be hurt by this budget. We have to make sure that they are taken care of. As long as we have those good teachers for the students, then the ability to do the job will be there for us. And the budget shouldn't be too much of a problem for it. I am in high hopes that the administrators will review their budgets and take away what really isn't totally necessary at this point, even if it means touching on their own toes and maybe doing away with some of the things that they don't really need.
Almost done.
Okay, so education is vitally important in this state, and I think that they can manage it and maintain the proper, efficient management and provide the education that's needed for our students. Thank you.
You bet. Julie.
Would you repeat the second half of that question? You broke out on me again, and I did not hear you ask, and I apologize.
You bet, Julie. I'll read back the whole thing. It's a two-part question. First part is, what role do you believe higher education plays in Wyoming? And the second part is, have the abilities of community colleges and the University of Wyoming to fulfill that role been compromised by past and current reductions in their budgets?
Thank you for reading that back. Their answers make a lot more sense now. The role of higher education in Wyoming is vital, especially in Albany County. I do live in Albany County, the portion of House District 47 that's north of Laramie and Rock River. So I feel the effect of the university every single day. I've worked for them in a number of different facets. They're incredibly vital. They are the people who live here. They're Wyoming. Of course, it's incredibly important. Anything that hurts their budget or cuts them or undermines them, of course, is going to affect them and undermine their ability to do their job. But maybe one of the things they're lacking is the support of a legislature who truly will listen to their needs and actually communicate with them ways to solve the problems that don't just boil down to, we need money, we're going to come ask for it, and then we leave. And that's the end of the communication. I think that's somewhere we're making a big mistake with the university and the community colleges. I think there is a ton of opportunity for community colleges to absolutely blossom under their current economic climate. We have a system in place that reaches across the state. Because of that, our community colleges reach every corner. We've got a wonderful programs, everything from veterinary college to a nursing program that's unique, the brand program, which is one of the only ones existent of its kind. We need to see as an opportunity with our college and our system we have in place. We have the infrastructure here, we have the buildings, we have incredible educators. This is an opportunity to utilize the role they play, acknowledge it, and communicate with them better so that we can support them moving forward. I guarantee there's a million ways they can increase education and programs in trades and other associate's degrees, other bachelor's degrees, certificates and ideas. It's just a matter of setting that communication up and making resources available to them to diversify what they're offering. Thank you.
You bet. Jerry.
Well, higher education does fulfill a crucial role in the state of Wyoming. I talked earlier about the shortage of skilled workers, and most of those skilled workers require something other than above the high school level. Especially the career and technical education field is wide open, I believe. And we have so many opportunities for so many kids to have some rewarding careers in that, or some entrepreneurial opportunities, developing their own welding programs, their own mechanics programs, and so on and so forth. The other thing that's crucially important about the higher ed thing is that it's quite affordable in the state of Wyoming, especially when we have the Hathaway Scholarship to help subsidize that. But what research has also shown that if a kid goes to school in the state of Wyoming, they're much more likely to stay within the state than if they go to an out-of-state college. So I think it fulfills many roles, providing a workforce that's stable for the state of Wyoming, that'll stay here, and the kinds of jobs that are available for them gives us an opportunity to expand our industry. So crucial role.
Okay. The next question, we'll start with Dee. And this is more of an open-ended question for everybody. We've discussed several issues so far in the forum. So give everybody 90 seconds to talk about any other issues that are on your mind that you would like to pursue if you were to win the election and serve in this district for 2 years.
And I get that first one, huh?
Yeah, you're up, Dee. You bet.
Okay. There are so many issues that are facing us, that are facing our personal liberties that are being taken away from us, that are facing our Second Amendment rights. The fiscal responsibility is so important, but also less government. I know that sounds a little strange, but when I say less government, I'm going to take the Wyoming Department of Corrections as an example. From the time that Judy Uphoff was there, and then we had Director Lampert in there, he has increased his administrative office up there in Cheyenne by tenfold to where they had to move to another building. So one of my primary things would be to work with other legislators and find out where we can make these cuts. Why have we added more government to us when really we need less government? I believe that government should not be telling us what to do, but the people should be telling the government what to do. And this is one of the ways that we can have that done. You know, our country was built on capitalism, and Wyoming started out with our ranchers and then with our oil industries. I know we've already talked about the oil and gas and coal industries, but we really truly need to be working. So those are just a few of the things. The other thing I would work on is women's rights and encouraging women to vote, and maybe a little bit of. Okay, thank you.
You bet, Dee. And then if you want to complete your thought, you can with the next question, which will be the last one. But we'll continue with this one with Julie. There you go.
I have a delay, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
So we had 2 opportunities to touch on stuff. Cool. One of the ideas I want to come back to right away is upgrading things we're extracting before they leave the state. It's something I haven't really had too much of a chance to touch on tonight. I do not want the impression being made whatsoever that I am anti-oil and gas. There is still a lot of money left to be made in those industries, and we are Wyoming. There's absolutely no reason we should not make sure that we get every single penny out of our extractions that we could. But something Wyoming has been very poor at is upgrading things prior to leaving the state. That's a loss of jobs, it's a loss of income, and it's a loss of taxation revenue that should be coming to us. Those are our products. They need to be upgraded before they leave. And that's an entire idea that needs to be taken on as we look at our economy, upgrading things as they're being dealt with in Wyoming. Another thing I want to touch on here is no one's going to convince me that every single good idea to support our tourist industry has been had. Carbon County alone is one of the most diverse ecologically counties probably in the United States. The House District 47 is the size of some states. It's about the size of Massachusetts. You're not going to convince me we've looked at every single good idea here to utilize our public lands as the opportunity that they are for everyone to use. The last two things that I want to close on are two general ideas. Taxation, when we pass it, as we decide these things, they're affecting people's daily choices, daily lives. Taxation will affect culture. Every single choice has to be made very carefully, and I'm going to stop on that one.
Okay. Jerry.
I'd just like to finish one thought that I was didn't have time to really finish on talking about our community colleges. I think maybe it's time that we looked at the whole funding scheme for community colleges and tried to do a better job of stabilizing that. I know that the community colleges had to make some serious priority cuts, including cutting the athletic programs and so forth. I know that they have some infrastructure issues with buildings, and I just think we need to take a harder look at that. And then just to take a big jump again, Joey talked about my stance on the state of Wyoming taking over federal lands and being opposed to that. The reason that the difference between that is when we're looking at the Occidental thing, we're looking at 1 million acres. When we're looking at the federal program, we're looking at 30 million acres. And I don't think Wyoming has the resource to manage 30 million acres. I do think we have the resources to manage 1 million acres. So that's the end of it.
Okay, Joey.
And when I'm your representative, I'll make sure to take those thoughts of yours as one of my constituents into consideration. I've already talked about my 20% reduction plan. The governor asked the departments. I'm going to ask the people that say they love and serve and are responsible for running Wyoming to take that 20% cut if they're making over a certain amount. If you're elected in Wyoming and you say we have a passion for Wyoming and we want to serve and we care about the people, we're going to feel the pain as legislators and elected officials before we put that on the people that elected us. I got a big problem with what's going on in the highway department right now. Director Reiners shut down a bunch of rest stops to save about $175,000 this year, and then he goes and immediately spends $250,000 to research a plan on how to get all of us to pay a road usage tax or fee in hopes that eventually he can get rid of the gas tax. Well, all you got to do is Google it for free and not spend $250,000, and they see that there's a program out there already called IFTA, the International Fuel Tax Agreement, that could be applied only to the most damaging and heaviest users of our roads, which is our multi-axle over-the-road truckers. When you gas up in Nebraska and don't stop till Salt Lake, how does Wyoming get the taxes? IFTA is the program that does that. And that doesn't require that the people are paying for it. It will not raise the cost of any of the items that are being transported. And it's another way that the government will not be able to track us electronically, because the only way they can institute a usage fee on the roads is if they put a chip in your driver's license or in your license plate.
Okay, I think we're down to the final round for tonight. We have about 5 or 6 minutes still left here in this forum. So as I mentioned before, we'll just have this final round of 90 seconds, and we'll start with Julie on this. Just give that to you. Anything that you might want to say, any concluding remarks, anything that might be on your mind. So Julie, we'll start with you on that.
Thank you. I'm actually just going to use this to finish my previous comments from before. There was one last thing I wanted to mention on here that I do believe needs to be changed in Wyoming pretty quickly, that goes along with the idea of upgrading our extracted items and making sure we're getting the most of everything we're doing as windmills. I'd like to see more of that done, at least in the United States, preferably by a Wyoming company. We need to stop paying to upgrade energy just to have it leave the state. It's not making a whole lot of sense to me. That's just the entire idea behind what needs to be done with Wyoming is taking every opportunity we have here. Everyone who lives here, who loves being here, anyone who makes a winter in one single rural town anywhere in House District 47 and still likes being here, loves Wyoming, period. We know what we have here. Why are we not utilizing all of this? We've got to show that we know what Wyoming's worth and act like it, take some responsibility for it as a state. I do plan on working very hard in legislature with my administrative background to reduce the size of administrations. And I think it is somewhere that's a huge area of waste. Most people in administration do know that as well. They'll tell you that as you're working your way through it and getting educated in it. The last thing I'd like to close on is my contact information, just to make sure all voters, anybody out there has any questions for me, I will answer them, even if it's an I don't know. My phone number is 307-343-3663. My email is juliemcallister47@hotmail.com. And my website is juliemcallister47.com. Timekeep, I couldn't see you, so I have no idea where I'm at, so I'm going to close there. Thank you very much to League of Women Voters for doing this. It's a lot of effort, especially with COVID going on, and it's just greatly appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight.
Thank you, Julie. Jerry.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thanks to the League of Women Voters. I really don't have anything else to add at this time, so I think I would just like to yield my time to the other two.
Hey, thank you, Jerry. Joey.
Yeah, thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Albany County Library for putting this on. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in that library, and I know it's a special place for a lot of people, so thank you. I just want to reiterate, I can't go into a whole lot of detail right now, but beyond the 20% cut in high-paid administrators in the state, I have found between $1.1 and $1.6 billion in the budget that we could feasibly cut without raising a tax, any tax, a single dime, by putting the burden on the taxpayer and the working people of Wyoming. My phone number is 307-477-1776. You can call me anytime to talk about it. Look on my website, www.joeycarenti.com. And there's a lot of information about me on there, and I'm always available. I do this 24/7. I don't have another job. I'm already retired. I'm all over the district, Farson to Rock River, Barrel to Bags, every week and a half. So I'll be out there, and I'm out there for you. And just remind y'all that we don't need another professional administrator with a bunch of experience that hasn't gotten us anywhere. You need an operator that's going to come from a place where he's had his boots on the ground, not his boots on your neck. He's started businesses. He knows how to fail and come back from that with a better idea. And that you need a representative that remembers it is from the people you are coming from. And one day it is unto the people you will return. And you're going to want to be able to face those people. So remember that rural Wyoming matters, and hope to see you at the next forum. Thank you.
And Dee, you get the final word.
Yay, thank you. I just want to thank everybody again. It is greatly appreciated. But what I'm really going to thank you for is I think some of the questions we got tonight were terrific questions. They required some thought to go into it and for us to put forth some of the ideas that we have. I'm just going to reiterate that I am not for increasing taxes. I do feel we have other alternatives that I have said through the course of this. And I will tell you that I am going to go there and fight for us. I live in the little town of Bear Royal, and you're not going to get much more rural than that. I can assure you of that. So I do have an understanding of what living out here is. My website is www.deegarrison.com, and you can reach me by phone at 866-DEE4WYO. I would welcome your getting a hold of me either on the web page or giving me a call so we can discuss further what your ideas are to make Wyoming a better place, because your ideas are what really counts. Thank you.
And thank you, Dee, and thanks to all the candidates for a very fine and informative forum. I know, of course, firsthand just how much work you're putting into these campaigns. And no one, unless they're really involved with it, completely understands the commitment, the dedication, and the long, hard work it takes to run for office. And that's important, and I'm so glad that you guys are doing it, because the strength of our democracy depends upon the people that we elect to office. So thank you very much. Thanks to the Albany County Public Library for their assistance in putting this together. And a particular thanks, of course, to the League of Women Voters for their years and decades of efforts in holding these forums and providing perhaps one of the most informative tools for voters to be able to make a sound decision on election day. So thanks to all the League of Women Voters in particular who helped make this forum possible. Kick it back to you, Nancy.
All right. Thank you, Mike. As usual, we are very pleased and appreciative of you being a moderator for us. And we look forward to hopefully having you moderate in the general election, which brings me to one of the next things I wanted to talk about before we close here. We will again be having forums for the general election for the candidates that do move forward to that next level. They probably, I'm guessing, will be virtual forums unless things really turn around in terms of COVID and the pandemic. But we'll play that as it comes. That's all we can do right now. We will also do another voter's guide. The candidates are aware that we send you questions and you submit your responses back to us. There's always a little timetable involved with that. It'll be a little more crunched. There's less lead time in terms of general election from the time of the filing date and the actual election and publication deadlines and such. So you may not get quite as much lead time in your questions and getting your responses back to us. So as we've mentioned several times, of course, these are going to be posted on YouTube. The first three forums that we've already held, the one for Wyoming House Districts 13 and 45, House District 14, House District 46, and Senate District 10 are already posted on YouTube. So if you're interested in viewing those, they're there. And then, like I said, we hope to have this one posted probably in the next 3 days or so. We have 2 more additional forums coming up for the primary election. They're both on August 6th. The first one will be from 5 to approximately 6 p.m. will be the recording time. And it is for the Laramie City Council candidates and the Clerk of District Court candidates in Albany County. This one will not be set up as a question and response forum because all of these candidates are running as uncontested candidates for the primary. And so we've invited them to come in and give 3-minute statements. Later that evening on August 6th, we'll be recording the candidate forum for the Albany County Commissioner candidates. So we look forward to doing this again at the general election, and I thank you all for being here and want to remind everybody to get out there and vote and to register to vote if you're not already registered. Thank you. Have a good rest of your afternoon and evening. Oh, and I'm going to do the screen share. Somebody better kick me over here. I don't have anybody to remind me. I'm going to do a screen share here, which will end this, that has all the candidates' contact information. Some of them gave it to you in their closing statements there. And it'll be the last part of the YouTube video here, so you can pause it if you need to get this information. There we go.
There's a number. Phone number.
Is there what's missing?
My phone number is 477-1747, like the district. 477.
Oh, wait a minute, I have to get rid of, I have something blocking my view of the, here we go. Oh, there is a number missing somewhere in a copy paste. I'm glad you brought that up. So for those of you still with us, yes. So Mr. Carenti's phone number is 307-477-1776. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, correct. We're doing a thumbnail, well, and that goes at the front of this as well. So when someone goes to the YouTube site, they'll see that, and I think we can get that corrected for the thumbnail.